We are now a year away before the premiere of James Gunn's reboot of Superman. Lots of time to speculate, anticipate, and get hyped up for. And since this is a Superman movie, it is a very big deal. It's a movie that carries a huge magnitude and also carries actually a whole lot of baggage because a lot of fans have huge expectations on how this movie should go, how the characters should be portrayed and represented. Good or bad, this movie is going to be a big deal. And I'm going to go on and say that I believe the Superman movie is going to be really good. It's going to be epic, and I think it's going to rejuvenate Superman, and I think it's going to usher in a new era in the superhero movies because the goal of both Gunn, Peter Safran, co-chairperson and CEO of DC Studios, because this is going to be about depicting and honoring a character the right way. The story comes first. And Safran has stated the movie will focus on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. And Superman represents truth, justice, and the American way. He's kind in a world that thinks of kindness as old-fashioned. This statement kind of is echoing in the world we're living in today, so this might be what the doctor orders as far as a superhero movie is. It's Superman, so it should be like that. He is a Boy Scout. It's going to be, we're going to tell a great story, and we want the fans to come and enjoy it, and it doesn't matter how old a fan you are or where you're from, you're going to connect with this character. And so far, James Gunn has used all the right words, and as we're heading into post-production, it seems like he's putting those words into actions really well. And you can bet your bottom dollar both Safran and Gunn know what's at stake with this movie. This movie doesn't work. Their whole plan for DCU's Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters is basically out the door. There's a lot of pressure on him, but I think he's the right man to do it. And I know it's really easy for me to say that right now, since we don't have a lot of tangibles to really base that on. But that's starting to change. As of now, we've gotten our first glimpse of Superman in the costume, and we've gotten a bunch of exterior set photos to kind of see and take in and digest. We've gotten the new Superman logo, and there was also just recently a little bit of a presentation in San Diego Comic-Con. Let's start with the first image of Superman, featuring David Cornsweet in the new Superman costume. As fans, superhero costumes are a big deal. When it comes to the superhero suit, doesn't get any bigger in importance in how a superhero costume is depicted on film, especially Superman, and we've come a long way from the 78 Superman movie. We've come a long way from the 2000 X-Men wearing leather, and in modern times today, the MCU really helped usher in comic book accuracy to the costumes, where now it feels like they've just took costumes out of the pages of the comics and put them on screen. They look really well. Even what they did with like Captain America's costumes, really good. Thor's, and most recently, finally seeing Wolverine's costume in its glory in Deadpool and Wolverine. Now when we do these movies, there should be no reason why cosplay at conventions costumes looks way better than what is depicted on the silver screen. Expectations are very high now.
I mean, anything bigger than a handful, you're risking a sprint tone, you know, and yeah.
And as usual, everyone has something to say about it. Definitely has been a little bit of a divisive reaction towards this. Should this really be a surprise to anyone?
You serious?
And when it comes to these movies, there's always some type of kind of backlash. Yeah, sometimes there's not.
The juice is loose.
But even look at when Michael Keaton was cast as Batman. You imagine if Michael Keaton was cast today, what the reaction would be like?
I'm Batman.
On second thought, he might have been short was the first impression, but as soon as we seen him in the suit for the first time, it looked pretty badass, and people got on board real quick. So first impressions of the suit made a whole lot of difference. People took that movie serious once they saw what he was wearing. I know that this is maybe comparing apples to oranges because this is the first photo, the first reveal of the suit, but my point is that we as fans, we're very fickle, and for good reason. We want the best for these franchises, these characters that we love. So I understand sometimes the vitriol between fandom. I have an idea of how Superman should look, his size, how the costume, his demeanor, all that. And it's probably hard as filmmakers or anyone that takes it on to please everyone. But I think us as fans, in a general sense, we just want the essence of Superman captured properly on screen of what we believe Superman should be. And to be honest with you, I don't think that should be really hard to do. I understand the Snyder fans out there will defend Superman, and we want Henry Cavill. As a fan of Henry Cavill, I thought the suit was awesome. I thought for what he was given and what it is, I enjoyed Henry Cavill, and I actually think Henry Cavill could have been a quintessential Superman, but unfortunately, the route that DC took just didn't work the way that we probably all hoped to. Who knows, maybe he'll get another stab at it later on in life, so you just never say never. As far as Superman as it comes to the big screen, we're moving on to something different. James Gunn's going a different direction.
Hold on to your butts.
And now we have our first glimpse. It's pretty divided. Either people really like it or people don't like it at all, and they're spelling doom that this movie is failed and yada yada. I'm gonna judge when I start seeing a lot of tangible stuff, but this is our first image of Superman. As far as my thoughts are, I don't mind it. I don't love it. It's not the costume I envisioned for myself. I will always be reverent to the classic Superman costume. You can't beat that. Kind of like if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it kind of thing. And again, I'm not going to try to make assumptions about why he went with the design, or again, this is going to be something like once we see this costume and David Cornsweet in action, flying, battling, and then I think I can make an objective opinion on things. Looking at the suit, you can see some interesting melding of different comic book and movie influences there. This suit kind of has a more blending of more so modern influences with a touch of traditional Superman costumes worn by the previous ones. I can forgive fans kind of based on Gunn's various comments regarding the tone of the film, where they would be expecting a more traditional Superman costume to Christopher Reeve's classic in the films, or you could even look at Brandon Routh, the costume he wore in the Arrow Flash series, that Infinite Crisis, whatever. His costume was actually pretty badass.
One thing's for sure, nobody's gonna be looking at your face.
Mom?
But there's some positive things I can kind of see there. First of all, I think this movie is going to have a lot of color in it, the color that we wanted to see with Superman, because partly a lot of criticism of the Snyder, I found this, like the coloring, the cinematography of Superman was not as bright as I hoped it to be. I know they kind of tried to do it, especially the Josh Whedon. I found it was too dark, and so seeing here, I already like that, there's going to be bright colors. I understand that this is not at its brightest, but there's a lot going on in this picture, and it's fun listening to people because everyone has their speculations on what's going on in here. They're like, Superman putting on his boots, sitting nonchalantly, and there's a big sphere, the end of the world, and he's not in a hurry. Really, like his demeanor, I don't really read too much into it. It is a still. I understand maybe people want to see him in a super pose like we've seen of Christopher Reeve or even Henry Cavill, but I'm okay with the nonchalant. To me, the picture symbolizes what really Superman is. He is 24/7 a 911 call. It looks like he was already in a battle. Kind of symbolizes what I read into this, is that Superman is on call 24/7 all the time. To really sum this up, I think the intention of this photo was to show a humanized and a more working class Superman. This shows a more humble side of Superman, and somewhat he feels the pressure of being a hero. For one thing, there is obvious signs of battle damage across this suit. This is hardly that pristine, unblemished super suit. It looks like his costume's already taken a real beating. This is something we've seen over different iterations in Superman comics. This also indicates that he has taken direct damage from a potential alien threat that matches his power. So it can suggest that there's a real threat that Superman has to face in this movie. A negative thing I would say is I'm not too crazy about the collar. It looks like they're kind of basing it from the 52 design, the Superman, almost like it looks like in recent time with video games. They've kind of made Superman's suit a little more techy. And again, I'm an old school guy. Superman is like one of the most powerful characters. He doesn't need any tech. He doesn't need anything advancey to his costume. The simplicity of it is great. But one thing I really like is the trunks are back. And a lot of people are kind of a little bit divisive of this. I've always loved the trunks. I don't think it doesn't look corny as long as you put it on a good way. So, and I kind of like the fact that we see the trunks there, but we're not seeing its entirety. So it kind of leaves a little more to the mind's eye. I'm actually really digging the symbol, and I know the symbol looks really like it's taken from the image from Kingdom Come. I think it looks really good. It also looks like it could be amalgamation of two, that, but also the Max Fletcher Superman, especially the outline of the symbol on the chest. Very reminiscent of it, so I wouldn't be surprised if James Gunn is homaging both. I see David Cornsweat, he's got the curl, which is a nice little added touch that has been missing for a long time. And to go further, Superman should have all three of those. He should have the big S symbol in the front of his chest, he should have it on the back of his cape, and he should have it in his hairline there, which this, in my opinion, represents the Holy Trinity if you want to get biblical. The costume seems that it was intentionally designed not to be as form-fitting as past live-action suits. It's clearly more heavy-duty than the skin-tight spandex, but it also doesn't fit Cornsweat's body as seamless as Cavill's Superman costume. So it kind of creates an impression that Clark's suit is more so homespun design rather than the advanced battle armor generated by some of the ancient Kryptonian technology that we saw in Snyder's. Maybe we'll get a scene in this movie where Superman is fixing his suit, putting it together like Batman or Peter Parker. Wouldn't that be cool? Looking at the colors, you don't know. Is he in his apartment? It appears that way. Or is he in an apartment? Is he in Lois Lane's apartment? Getting ready. And then the bright sphere in there. I think I like the colors there behind the clouds and kind of the silhouette of the city. Like, to me, I've heard some people talk about, and that was the first thing that came to my mind, is that the colors and that represents the power suit of Lex Luthor. And I think many of us fans are clamoring and seeing Lex Luthor's power suit finally on the big screen. I mean, we've seen it epically in video games. We've seen it in different iterations in the animated movies. And you know James Gunn is going to give us that. Now, maybe not in this movie, but I cannot see James Gunn not give us a version of Lex Luthor in the power suit. And so far, Nicholas Hollet's Lex Luthor is the only confirmed villain for Superman, but I think this image also teases that there's going to be more going on than just Superman facing his greatest nemesis. And I think a lot of fans are speculating that we may be seeing Brainiac attacking Metropolis, because that's certainly a possibility, and that's been something that fans have been clamoring at forever. We have yet to see Brainiac in live action on the big screen. However, other speculation has been suggested that this could be Solaris, a villain that was actually created by Grant Morrison and is known as the Tyrant Sun. And basically, it's an artificial sun who wages war on the descendants of Superman throughout the centuries. So maybe there's a team up with this Tyrant Sun and Lex Luthor trying to go to war to Superman, maybe rob him of his powers, why we see him all damaged. Or that flash of green energy could be also a tease of Green Lantern being in this movie, because we have Guy Gardner in it. And there is also the fact that James Gunn has pointed to All-Star Superman and is playing a major source of inspiration for this movie. All this stuff could be quite possible. Far as a first image of Superman in his costume, it definitely had some interesting things in it going on. At the end of the day, if the image did anything, it definitely created on social media tons of funny memes of it. There's definitely people changing the color. There's definitely people putting Henry Cavill's Superman in it. They have Superman with Crypto. They have Superman at a shoe store. There's even Garfield. There's just so many things to be seen with this. So I look at this as actually a positive thing, because people were having fun with the image and being creative. And that's the point of all this, is having fun, even if it's at the expense of the image. Since then, we have gotten lots of set photos, and it's been crazy. And these are set leaks which Gunn himself expected to be released online. So at this point, I'm going to give you a spoiler alert, as some of the stuff now that I'm going to be discussing could potentially be spoilers in the film. Be warned. When you're filming in the very public view, anyone who may be passing by or maybe live in the area from their apartment or just happens to be flying their drone in the area can potentially get photos on their phone. I guess the biggest concern for a movie such as Superman is potential spoilers. However, James Gunn has addressed this online over the course of filming, that he will never shoot a big spoiler outside in the middle of the city. In this day and age, movie production crews are aware there is going to be leaks. There is no point shying away from some of these things. This is something I have always appreciated about James Gunn. He has never shied away from things with the fans. He has always been very accessible to answering concerns about his movies while filming, something you cannot say for other movie makers out there. Disney, Lucasfilm, need I say more? I get it. It's hard not to take things from online personal when before your film is even finished, people are crapping all over it or criticizing every little move you make. Or on the other hand, this could just be Gunn himself playing these leaks all down to throw us all off to not focus attention, out of sight, out of mind. The biggest takeaway from seeing the new Superman suit in natural lighting is how much brighter and sleeker than the promotional photos suggest it was. Also, there is no doubt about it. We will once again see Supes donning his iconic red trunks.
That is America's ass.
Red Panty Night is back with Lois, I'm telling you. I know this has been a debate for some time since Superman appeared without them in comics during the DC's New 52 reboot. And we've seen this Henry Cavill's Superman, so we've gotten kind of used without the trucks. However, I've always felt like his suit was missing something without them, like the suit was unbalanced or something. I'm glad to see them back, and they look fantastic. But that is not all that is back. We will be seeing once again the yellow S symbol on the back of his cape. It is another cool addition we as fans haven't seen on film since the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. This made the whole Superman suit more regal looking in my opinion. We don't just get to see David Cornsweet as Superman, we also get to see our first look at Clark Kent. Look at that stud in some of these photos. Panty remover right there.
That's her panties.
But I think what the biggest takeaway is, you're seeing two opposite sides of the coin, that a lot of debate has been, how come people cannot tell that Clark Kent and Superman are not one and the same? And I think it's in kind of the posture, how, when you saw Christopher Reeve play him, he had a hunchback, he didn't look, he had confidence. We didn't really see that really in recent times with Clark Kent being portrayed like in TV or even in the movies. Henry Cavill's, like, really, to be honest with you, I did not see really any change between Clark persona and his Superman persona.
Probably some old charity crone who's got a thing for nerds.
Where here, the hair is different, glasses. It's going to be something where he's going to probably portray Clark in a way where a lot of people are going to overlook this guy is actually Superman. If you want kind of a good example of that, read this in All-Star Superman. It's a great example seeing the Clark character versus the Superman character and just seeing the appearance of David Cornstalk's Clark. Yeah, he looks kind of nerdy. His hair's curly. I guess one maybe negative that a person could take out of this is like, we have had so many years of Superman and Lois coming together where right now, initially just seeing these photos, you're kind of like, this Clark Kent, I don't know how this Clark Kent can really attract the type of Lois Lane, because I'm sure this Lois Lane in this Superman movie is going to be super intelligent and also feisty, so it might be fun watching this kind of clumsy, klutzy Clark Kent kind of play off of this version of Lois Lane, so I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Oh, sorry.
But if I had to be honest, I do understand why, even with these photos and seeing some of these videos and seeing it in action, why people are still kind of not digging the costume, and there's lots of memes out there and lots of criticism. Because when I first saw the suit in these photos, I was underwhelmed a bit too. However, the more photos I have seen, the more I'm kind of liking the suit. There's no doubt, and I'm going to hold to this, nothing beats the classic Superman suit. I think you can have it in every iteration and make it look kind of cool. I don't really think you need to make it different. It's pretty clear Gunn is going for his own iconic appearance, and the more I see it, the more I see David Cornstalk, I feel like I'm getting used to it. Of course, I have hope after this movie, if it is like I think it's going to be a huge success, could maybe see James Gunn maybe considering going to a more classic, because again, this Superman, he's said to be 25 in this movie, so he's still relatively young as Superman, so this suit could just be like a prototype suit where actually he will upgrade it as we've seen, because we've seen in Zack Snyder's Superman went from the bright colors to the black, so interchanging the suit is going to maybe evolve in this Superman series. Kudos to James Gunn, he's trying to do something different, and he's trying to respect everything that came together and trying to make it his own. And we have to kind of give it, these are set photos that are from people's phones. We're not seeing everything in the context of it, and who knows, they might alter it a little bit with effects just as itself to enhance the suit. But outside of microscopically criticizing the Superman suit, these set photos, as I've seen them more and more, really suggest that this Superman's going to be a really heroic Superman. This is a Superman that the adage of Superman saves the day, or this is a job for Superman.
This looks like a job for Superman.
We're going to see in this movie, because these set photos, we're seeing Superman in different action sequences where he's swooping down to save kids. There's rubble. You could probably tell, it looks like from one of the newspaper articles written about him suggesting that a collapsed building, and as you're seeing, we're going to probably see Superman coming in, and as debris is falling. Now, this debris falling from the building, I'm assuming is due to confrontation between Superman and the engineer and the Ultraman potentially, or it could be something else, but he's not only is he fighting these two individuals where an adversary, he still has to be Superman and the collateral damage of saving innocent people, because again, this has been a point of contention with, especially with Snyder's Superman, especially with Man of Steel, of the collateral damage, the city being destroyed. Was he heroic enough? Was he saving people enough? I think this movie is going to harken back to some classic Superman. For example, there is a teased newspaper article from the set photos of Superman stopping a train, and this is a big callback of him stopping a train in Superman for All Seasons. He stops a train, so you know this is a callback, just seeing Superman just being heroic. Also, I haven't seen nothing to confirm this, but I am going to speculate that throughout the movie, especially beginning the movie before the action kind of intensifies, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a scene of Superman going and speaking to a person on a ledge that's considering suicide, as we saw this in the panels of Superman, All-Star Superman, where there's this girl that was going to commit suicide, were attempting to, and he came there, and instead of just coming like Superman could, he could just fly and super away. He came and talked to her. He took the time. So I would not be surprised if this Superman, and knowing James Gunn, I could see them tying this in or homaging this to a little bit. A scene like that would encompass what really Superman is, humane and compassionate side, and that is his greatest strength. In the Christopher Reeve Superman, Lois Lane asks him, "Who are you?" And he replies, "A friend." Well, even Superman needs a friend, and it definitely appears we're going to get some live-action Krypto in this movie, Superman's trusty dog. And we all know Gunn loves dogs, as he posts a lot of pics of his dog online, and we can see set photos of a dog on set. So look for Krypto flying his way to lick you and ask for a treat. And speaking of licking, I wouldn't mind licking the ladies that have been cast in this movie. Except maybe Martha Kent there. She's a little too old. Or is she? And last but not least, we are seeing in these set photos of Superman getting to fly. We actually see quite a few photos of him crouching down, looking to take off into the sky. This is definitely a pure homage to the 1940s shorts, Max Fletcher's Superman. And we've seen this before in other Superman iterations. Even Henry Cavill's Superman did this. So look forward to seeing him flying all over the place. We're going to see some iconic Superman shots, probably flying past the Daily Planet over it. Who knows, we might even get a kind of a direct homage of Superman flying the Earth by the sun and smiling at us. That pulls a little too close to Richard Donner's Superman, so I would like to think maybe James Gunn will do something different. Superman is going to fly, and it's going to look awesome. And there is more set photos of other characters appearing in this movie. Like I said, there's Mr. Terrific, and there's lots of shots with him besides David Cornswit's Superman, maybe working together on the threat, and then we have Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl. We get Rick Flag Sr., Ultraman potentially, and the Engineer. But then another noted person on the set that we've seen already glimpses of is Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, and he looks pretty cool. He is sporting that bald dome. And it also appears in these photos that Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, and Hawkgirl are part of the same team. Now, I'm not sure if that's with Rick Flag Sr., because actually the photos with, it looks like Ultraman and Engineer are with him. So I'm not sure if they're the villains in this movie or there's something with Superman that they're trying to take him down, because one speculation that I'm thinking, if they pull a little bit from Superman for All Seasons, is Lex Luthor kind of frames Superman as being kind of a threat that talks him from him, because he's an alien, is affecting everybody, so he frames him. So I'm wondering, because we do see in a lot of these shots, Superman is in cuffs and in shackles, and the military's behind him, kind of echoes Man of Steel. So it looks like at some point, Superman, the government and the agency, maybe Star Labs, they're kind of going after him, because he's actually in this movie seen to the people, maybe not us audience, as actually the villain. So they're trying to stop Superman. So this could be possibly what will happen. I wouldn't be surprised. And throughout the movie, this situation can play into part of Clark, Superman's journey to reconciliate his Kryptonian heritage with his adoptive human family. What better way for him to feel like he could harm the people that he loves by just existing here? And I think this will lend to what I think is going to be really plastered throughout this movie as a theme, is dualism. There's definitely dualism with Superman, Kal-El, Clark Kent, human, alien. For Superman, all-powerful alien that can shoot X-rays out of his eyes and can fly. Then there's mild-mannered reporter Clark Kent, buffoon who trips over his own 2 feet. I love that symbolism that I think this movie is going to have. It really looks like there's going to be lots happening in the streets of Metropolis in this movie. There's just tons of shots of actions, people running, rocks, debris. Just like Gotham is to Batman, Metropolis is to Superman, and it's basically a major character all into itself. I can't wait to see the cityscape throughout the film. There's going to be beautiful shots, and we know that Gunn is going to make Metropolis play a key part in shaping up this movie. More specifically, the Daily Planet, as we have seen lots of shots of it exterior, from the outside, from the entrance. We've got an interior shots, and it has kind of a distinct retro look to it. I really like the look of this Daily Planet from the outside and inside. And apparently this Daily Planet is going to have the big iconic landmark that it has, that smaller version of the Daily Globe that stands at the top of the building in the comics. This is shaping up to look fantastic, just from a plain aesthetic look. I think I could probably digress a little bit, because with all these photos and all these sets and the videos, there is so much a person could talk about just the filming that they've done. And there's tons of Easter eggs to a person can see, and then there's probably more that can be unearthed. But these are some of the major things that I took away from the set photos that I've seen. Even some of the videos came to my mind. I'm sure anyone else is talking about this, and even yourselves, you might see some things that I miss, and some of you probably even understand this more than me, but this is my takeaway. So it's been quite fun looking at this and kind of already piecing about skeptically what this film is going to be and how it's going to unfold. In order to do this, you're going to need the right crew and cast behind you, and I believe James Gunn has done that with this movie, just who he cast, not only the leads, but the supporting cast. And if anything a person can say about James Gunn, he's great at making ensemble pieces. Like, really, the Guardians of the Galaxy is a terrific ensemble piece, where in the movies, every character has their moment to shine, even if they're more of a bit player, like Craiglin, Yondu's first mate, who over the series becomes a Guardian of the Galaxy, who happens to be played by James Gunn's younger brother, Sean Gunn. He is hilarious, and I love him in those movies. He's not in them that much, but when he shows up, he usually has some type of comedic bit. And actually, throughout the series, you even see a development of story with the character.
Captain's gotta teach them.
And I don't see any difference with Superman. We're going to get Superman and Lois's story, but I think some of the side character bits where they will progress throughout the film, or maybe set up things for the next film, or just have them become eventually emerging characters. I'm very confident. It's just looking at the casting of this movie. To me, for the most part, for pretty much the whole thing, he's been spot on the casting. The person they cast is David Cornsweet. I did not see this person coming. I did not know. He looks like he could be Superman. He's a big man. He's a good-looking guy. Pictures of him working out, he's jacked. He's going to look big. As soon as I saw first the initial casting, I'm like, I'm cool. I could see him being Superman. I like the Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. She kind of has that, I've always been a little bit superficial, where I'm like, frick, because just looking at who's playing Eva Tessmacher, I'm like, man, that Sarah Sampio could be, a Lois Lane, because she's super gorgeous.
Mitch Tessmacher!
Don't get me wrong, Rachel Brosnahan is quite gorgeous, but she's kind of got a little bit more of that girl next door. I think maybe her being a little too much of a knockout would take away that. Lois Lane, at the end of the day, she's a great character. She has a fierce personality. She's a go-getter. She's a fun character. Like, this is the person that captures the heart of Superman, so she's got to be something special. So I like the look, and I know tentatively it's hard to always have your character from a physical and features look like the comic character, but I personally have always appreciated them going as close as they can to the comic iterations. And so what I'm seeing is Lois Lane. I see Lois Lane as a dark brunette. I know that's a minor thing, and didn't mind Amy Adams as Lois Lane, but I found the red hair was a little bit, I know these are nitpicks, and I know people say you shouldn't worry about that, but I mean, I grew up kind of a visual of what Lois Lane looks like. I think Nicholas Hoult is a great choice for Lex Luthor. Like, he has that baby face, good looking guy. What we see with his range as an actor, he can play good characters, intelligent characters, but he can also play troubled characters and also a little bit off the wall, because like you see him in Fury Road, you know, he was quite kind of a nut job in it, enough where you gain sympathy. I think that's what Nicholas Hoult really is good at, is that you still sympathize even if he's doing bad things. So I'm looking forward to seeing, because like really you look at part of Lex Luthor's grudge against Superman is that he was the golden child of Metropolis. He was the man of tomorrow, and then Superman comes along and he takes second fiddle, and that just doesn't sit right with Lex Luthor. So I'm looking forward to seeing something like that, far away from Jesse Eisenberg's erratic, weird, creepy Lex Luthor. Maybe some of you liked it, did not capture Lex Luthor in my opinion. And then we go on to Skylar Gizzano. I'm probably going to butcher some of these names, but he looks like Jimmy Olsen to me. Sidekick look, you know, a little geeky. They casted Prudent Tyler Vince as Jonathan Kent. I was a little bit, the guy, you know, he kind of has his eyes that I just never would picture him, but I'm like, you know, we'll see what happens, because I think he's a really good actor. He's in a lot of things, so we'll see what happens. And you can kind of see they casted Jonathan and Martha Kent. I think Neva Howell will be Martha. They're quite older, and a lot of the depiction is that they're a little bit older. You look at Superman for All Seasons, Martha and Jonathan look like they're elderly couple with a young teenage son. So I like seeing that. And Wendell Pierce is going to be Perry White. He's a good actor. I thought Lawrence Fishburne did a great job. I'm kind of curious to see how Wendell Pierce does it. He's got kind of a fathery but authority. Guy Gardner, this is a character who a lot of people like. He's kind of one of those characters you love to hate in a way. So, and of course James Gunn cast Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner. So if they give that bowl cut on him and a little bit of the red hair, man, it'd be awesome, because he's a great actor, funny, and to kind of see how this character is incorporated in Superman, I'm kind of looking forward to it. And there's a lot of other characters in there. I see Sean Gunn's brother as Max Lord.
Life is good, but it can be better.
I think Terrence Rosemore plays Otis. I don't know if he's kind of like going to be the Otis like we saw with Warren Beatty and the Superman, but I don't know. I guess you need a little bit of comic relief. And also, interesting enough, is Miley Alcock was cast as Kara Zor-El as Supergirl. I know there's been quite a bit of debate on whether or not Sasha Kelly was going to reprise a role from the Flash movie. She did a good job. It served its purpose in that movie. And you watching that movie, you understand why her hair was darkened, and she basically was replacing Kal-El in the storyline of Flashpoint. Or that just might be my take on the matter. Unfortunately for Sasha, she has become kind of collateral damage in all this, where she doesn't get an opportunity to reprise her role and show what she can do with the character, because they're going a whole different direction with it. This is kind of more of a controversial thing that James Gunn, he's done away with Henry Cavill. Ben Affleck is done with the character. It looks like Gal Gadot will probably not be returning as Wonder Woman, and it just wouldn't be equitable continuing to use Ezra Miller as Flash, as the movie kind of speaks for itself, and then his past behavior. I don't think they want to start with controversy like that. And I know everyone is human and everyone has the capacity to change. Case in point, look what Robert Downey Jr. did to turn his life around. But you can argue that all his shit happened before he was cast as Tony Stark, where Ezra Miller, while he was cast and playing the Flash, all this weird stuff started to happen. It just created bad publicity going into the movie, among other things that was against that film. But when you're doing these movies with these types of characters that people look up to and are role models for children, you kind of need an actor that you can count on, that their behavior and demeanor exhibits what the character is. So anyone who casts as Superman, you're going to have to personify that character's essence to some degree. And I think the same could be said said for The Flash. A good example of this is Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea. He has said that being Hulk Hogan has made him a better human being, which of course is pretty rich because he's kind of a piece of shit, and you can just find history of him being kind of despicable as a person. Gotta love Hulk Hogan. He is definitely a national treasure. His lies are freaking awesome. I think he's now up to telling that Andre the Giant, when he faced him at WrestleMania 3, was at 700 pounds. Anytime he tells the story, Andre the Giant has gained another 100 pounds.
This is where the power lies. All right.
On the other hand, he has kept a couple like Viola Davis and John Cena as Peacekeeper, but you could argue these characters are not necessarily very central characters to the story and the movies, so you can get away with that, where Superman and Supergirl, they're very iconic characters, and it seems pretty reasonable as far as those characters are related that he would want to kind of start from scratch with new actors, so there's no kind of built-in baggage. And it's quite possible Sasha, among the other actors, for example, Jason Momoa, had conversations that once he's done with Aquaman, that they will continue to have him in this universe, but he may be playing a different character. And it's always been widely rumored he wanted to play Lobo. People want to see him as Lobo. Sasha might get another opportunity, but it just might be a different character, and this could be just a good faith thing from Gunn, because Gunn has even said that if there's something in the future for Henry Cavill, he may return into that universe. Supergirl to me is iconic. She has blonde hair, and again, I know maybe for some people this doesn't matter, maybe it shouldn't, but I just grew up with that, so her being a blonde, I'm kind of happy with the casting. I really enjoyed her in the House of Dragons, you know, so much like that scene at that brothel with her and her uncle, you know, it kind of made you forget about that they're related because it was a pretty hot scene, but then you're like, ugh. But man, she was good, and I was kind of disappointed she was only in 5 episodes. I would have loved to see her out through the whole season, but I digress. So I'm kind of excited seeing her because I think she's a great talent. You know what? I'm just going to say it. She's very delicioso. I wouldn't mind eating that pizza pie. And speaking of delicious, we got some more ladies that are cast in this. We got Isabella Mercedes, who plays Kendra Sanders' Hawkgirl, and this marks the character's first time to be portrayed on the silver screen. The character has appeared in the CW's Arrow universe, and it looks like her and Guy Gardner and Mr. Terrific, just looking at their uniforms, are a part of the same team. Probably looks like, I don't know if they're there to aid Superman or they're there to take down Superman. I'm not sure the context there, but her character will definitely have some badass moments. Speaking of badasses, Maria Gabriela de Vera will play the engineer, who's a member of the Authority from the popular comics, whose abilities come from nanotechnology built in her body, and she looks like in this movie that her character first is going to be an adversary towards Superman, and just looking at her photos, and it really looks like the actress put in a lot of time to get in shape for this movie, so I'm assuming her character is going to have quite a physical role in this film, and you can see that from some of the videos there of her and the Ultraman. Apparently it looks like they're fighting Superman in a football stadium, and you can just look at a pic she posted online from a post-workout. She looks jacked and super sexy, so I'm looking forward to seeing her because she looks like a great baddie in this film. Kind of similar to Anjay Chara's Fiora from Man of Steel, who I wish we would have gotten to see more of this character. I thought the character really had a great impact. We just didn't get enough of her. I'm hoping this character, the engineer, kind of has that type of presence in this movie because I like what I see with her. Speaking of liking what I see, Sarah Sampaio will play Eva Tessmacher, and she's Lex Luthor's assistant and love interest, so I wonder what kind of juicy scenes those two are going to have, reminiscent of Gene Hackman and Valerie Perrine. I wonder in this movie she's going to have to help Superman pull off that kryptonite necklace, or maybe she just helps pull Superman off. And rounding off the female hotties in this movie is Michaela Hoover, who is playing Cat Grant, a Daily Planet columnist, and this is the character's first time being adapted on the big screen. The character has been played by Tracy Scoggins in Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, and of course, the character was played by Calista Flockhart superbly in the CW Supergirl. Not really sure how big a role Cat Grant's going to play in the film. Hopefully there's some scene chewing with the character and the other characters, but I think this character is going to have a small role. Moving on from the Mrs., let's go to the Mr. And when I say Mr., I'm talking about Mr. Terrific. And the character will be played by Eddie Gaethje as Michael Holt, Mr. Terrific, a superhero inventor who rivals in the DC universe even Batman in intelligence and inventiveness. And this character, when you see the images, basically looks like straight off the comic page. Then we have Anthony Carrigan, who plays Rex Mason, Metamorpho, an archaeologist and superhero who can transmutate elements in his body into various forms. Actually, Carrigan appeared as the villain Victor Zsasz in Gotham, and he appeared in CW's The Flash as Kyle Nimbus the Mist. To finally round off this huge ensemble cast, Frank Grillo will reprise his role as Rick Flag Sr. from the animated DCU series Creatures Commandos. Frank Grillo always brings an authority, maybe a mentor. He can play a good, compassionate coach, or he can play a sinister villain, such as the character Brock Rumlow, Crossbones in the MCU. He's a very versatile actor. You can't go wrong with Frank. When it comes down to it, outside of the hiccups towards the new Superman costume, which kind of seems like has been majority of the criticizing have been really missing variables that are kind of playing into this, that this is a crew headed by James Gunn that seems to really care about getting this right. They know that there's no room for error here. This movie has to work. When he was announced the head of DC Studios along with Peter Safran, and they were ushering in new DC movies, and Superman was picked as the first big film project in the lineup, you knew that the pressure is on. And I like the fact that we already know this is not origin story. This is going to follow a younger Clark Kent at the beginning of his career as a journalist for the Daily Planet and as an idealistic superhero protecting Metropolis. This is what people want from Superman. Sure, his costume right now is not up to par to some people, but this is the Superman we want to see.
Cool costume.
Thanks. My mom made it for me.
James Gunn, being the head of DC Studios, was really not a big surprise to me. It kind of makes sense. This is a guy that loves the genre. This is a guy that connects to comic books. This guy loves it. The guy's been balls deep in comics and film since all the way back to when he released Super. So this is a guy that for most of his career has focused it on comic books. And this guy seems to love it. This is not just some talented filmmaker that comes in and says, I want to try a project where it's a paycheck. This is a guy that really identifies with these characters, and he makes it personal with himself. To be successful, do we not need filmmakers that find themselves really connected to the projects? Like, at least James Gunn feels very connected and feels big responsibility. It doesn't get bigger than Superman having the responsibility and ushering a new one. And yes, we can get lost in that DC's tried to reboot it countless times and restructure it, but I think this time it really looks like they got all their eggs in order here. Now, again, the movie has to come out and it has to perform, no doubt about it. Looking at the variables, seems like they're doing it right. Like a lot of people, I was very surprised he announced himself as director. He's not known for telling stories about a figure as wholesome and iconic as Superman. Kind of seemed like a far cry from Gunn's usual body of work. Gunn, got started in cheap horror films and low-budget comedies like Super, and eventually he brought these lowbrow sensibilities to like Guardians of the Galaxy series. However, really clinched this for me that he's the right guy for Superman was after I watched Guardians of the Galaxy 3. In that movie, he really highlighted Rocket Raccoon's humanity. He took a really ridiculous character like a talking space rodent and made him into this emotional center of the movie, but he still maintained the silly fun aspects of Rocket, but he also added this traumatic history, this emotional state in this genuine humanity in a way that was humorous and heartbreaking, and I thought it was very resonant. I love the movie for that. I know some people, of course, will still say they prefer the first film, and the first film is the better film. But boy, watching Guardians 3 and just seeing, especially surrounded by Rocket Raccoon's story, I got chills watching that. So how does that relate to Superman? Past filmmakers have always struggled, it seemed, when writing or trying to bring Superman to the big screen. And so many of them kind of would make the mistake of focus on the almost messianic nature of the character. He's hard to relate to. I've never seen him that actually unrelatable. Yeah, he can put out fires with his breath, and he can shoot lasers out of his eyes, X-ray, and he can fly around the sun. And this was a character that had this huge morality and this brightness and this optimism, especially with a cynical world. And you're seeing that Gunn's approach is going to be that. He even said he's a big galoot. He's a farm boy from Kansas who's very idealistic. His greatest weakness is that he'll never kill anybody, and he doesn't want to hurt a living soul. Like, we have to remember, Superman has this unparalleled love for humankind, and he sees the goodness in all, or the potential they could be. Gunn is approaching Superman not as this outdated figure in need of modernization and fixing, but he's a timeless icon of goodness, decency, with superpowers. His greatest superpowers is his morality, his empathy, and his kindness to all living things. And I think on July 11th, 2025, this is what we're going to get from James Gunn. Let me know what you think. Do you like what we have seen so far from DC and James Gunn? Or are you indifferent? Is there a feeling of we've crossed this bridge too many times to even care? Or is there even an audience that cares for a retelling of Superman in a modern sense? I believe there is, and that's why I think I have more goodwill going into this than others. Just seeing the new DC Studios logo unveiled at Comic-Con, the classic DC Bullet logo that we've seen from 1977 until 2005, this just harkens back to my own childhood with the toys, all the merchandising, the posters, the comics, the unveiling of the motion graphic that were introduced, all its movies that feature Superman in a drawing by his co-creator Joe Shuster come to life, busting out a change before the Glazer logo appears. Right there just encompasses 8 decades of Superman.
If you want to see more videos like this, help us out by subscribing and liking our videos. And of course, we would love to hear your feedback in our comment section. But wait, there's more. You can also watch us on either Rumble and Odyssey. For those who prefer podcasting audio experience, you can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Heart Radio, Audible, and Amazon Music. We appreciate all of your support. Until then, stay vigilant and stay away from all those soy boys.